Hi, welcome back to Trauma-Informed Practices in Early Childhood Education. This video is going to be a little different. Rather than looking at specific strategies and describing scenarios where you can use those strategies, I'll be going over two scenarios which an educator might face and talk about which strategies can be useful in these scenarios. The first situation is this. A 4-year-old child with a history of domestic violence and was born addicted to heroin continually screams at the other children when they go into the same center the child is playing in. How would you address this situation? Considering what we know about how trauma may lead to difficulty forming positive relationships and the inability to control emotions, it may be a good idea to use practices based on social emotional learning. Understanding why the child keeps screaming is an important first step in resolving the issue. If the reason the child keeps screaming is because they don't want others to play with them, you could ask them, how can you tell your friends that you want to play by yourself? This way, the child learns to use their words nicely instead of screaming. As a teacher, it's your job to follow through with this, and if the child uses the words nicely to ask other kids to leave them alone, you need to enforce that and make sure that the other students respect those words. Trauma-informed practices are not an exact science, though, and you could also take a different approach, such as modeling how to share and play with others. The second scenario I would like to discuss is this. A child whose mother was recently arrested for drug possession refuses to lay on their mat during rest time, playing with toys and talking to children trying to sleep. When I asked educators this question, I got mixed answers, but the majority said that they would provide quiet toys or activities or remove the child from the room. When thinking about trauma-informed care, both of these would be good practices if possible. Removing a child from a classroom is never the goal, and we want a child to feel safe enough in the classroom that they can relax. But it isn't always an option to keep them in the room. They're clearly bothering the other children, and they may feel more comfortable in a less distracting environment. Rather than making it a punishment to sleep somewhere else, an educator can find a more comfortable place for the child to rest, helping them get the downtime that young children need. Offering a quiet activity can also be a great method to provide a less distracting way for the child to spend rest time. Trauma can lead to hypervigilance and difficulty relaxing, so being able to give the child an activity that they can do or a sensory toy that they can play with may be the best method for helping a child who struggles with nap time. Nap time can be one of the most stressful times for an educator, and it's okay to explore different strategies for what works. Putting in a night light, playing music or white noise, letting children read a story in bed for half an hour before lights out could all be ways to help children calm their bodies. If you rub a kid's back, pay attention to their body language. Ask first and respect them if they say no. If a child pulls away even after they said yes, then stop and just sit with them. Always ask too. I try to rub every child's back, and sometimes their answers change, and a child who said no and curled up in a ball one day might say yes the next day and be perfectly fine. With trauma-informed practices, there are no perfect answers to how to respond to situations. If you notice certain situations keep happening, like kids ignore you or disobey you, then create a plan of action for those situations so that you are prepared to respond with a trauma-informed approach rather than reacting in a potentially negative way. If you have any questions or anything to add to the conversation, I'd love to see your comments below.